Sports really helped improve Canada and other countries in the 1920s because it brought people together after World War I occurred. Many families were devastated to hear about the outcomes of the war, and so sports really encouraged people to come back together and communicate with each other. Sports was also a new hobby for unemployed men that came back from the war. Many sports were played during the 1920s, such as football, basketball, boxing, baseball, ice hockey, tennis, athletics, golf, and swimming. The first official professional sports were boxing and baseball, and the first official elitist sports were tennis, golf, and polo. But the most commonly played sports in Canada were ice hockey, baseball, rugby, basketball, lacrosse, and football. Ice hockey became a very popular sport in the 1920s in Canada. Since its popularity grew rapidly, it was considered Canada's national sport. The National Hockey League (NHL) became an immediate success with many Canadian spectators who enjoy watching hockey. Many hockey players would get injured due to the lack of equipment. They suffered from most injuries since they never wore helmets. In the late 1920s, ice hockey expanded into the United States and into other countries. Hockey is now considered a part of the Canadian culture and is now the national sport of Canada.
Baseball was greatly changed during the 1920s. The 1920s was great for baseball. Big and new baseball stadiums were built as the sport grew. This brought hundreds of people who came to watch baseball, and fans during the 1920s voted by people. Baseball was one of the popular sports in the 1920s.
Basketball is a sport that was invented by James Naismith, who was a Canadian, in 1891. This sport, unlike any other, was played by both men and women. Basketball was a popular sport that unemployed men would play during their free time. The Edmonton Grads were a popular basketball team that contained all female players. The Edmonton Grads had an outstanding record of 502 wins and 20 overall losses. They also managed to win 4 gold Olympic medals. The Edmonton Grads proved to Canadians that women could play equally as good as men, and this showed the world the amazing talent Canadians have and the effort they're willing to put in for sports.
In the 1920s, the football was heavier compared to a football that you see now. Also, in the 1920s, the football players used leather hats instead of helmets. In the 1920s, the footballs used to have different shapes, color, and size. Some of the Canadian football teams were Brooklyn Lions, Canton Bulldogs, Chicago Tigers, and the Cleveland Tigers.
Canada competed in the 1920s Summer Olympics at Antwerp, Belgium. 59 Canadian men took part in the Olympics, in 39 events and 9 sports. Canada participated in swimming, diving, boxing, cycling, ice hockey, rowing, shooting, and wrestling. Overall, Canada won 3 gold medals in men's ice hockey, men's 100-meter hurdle, and men's wrestling. 3 silver medals, 2 in boxing and 1 in 400-meter freestyle swimming, and 3 bronze medals, 2 in boxing and 1 medal in 400-meter freestyle swimming. That makes a total of 9 medals. Some of the famous athletes during the 1920s were Jack Dempsey. William Harrison, also known as Jack Dempsey, was a professional American boxer during the 1920s. Dempsey was born on June 24, 1893, in Colorado, America, and passed away on May 31, 1983, in New York City. His nicknames were Kid Blackie and the Manasseh Mauler. He competed from 1914 to 1927, fighting a total of 75 fights during his career. Dempsey won 54 fights, lost only 6, and tied 9 fights in a total of 13 years. Jack Dempsey was one of the most popular boxers in American history due to his aggressive fighting style and outstanding punching power. Johnny Weissmuller was an Austro-Hungarian American athlete who was born on June 2, 1904, in Vest, Romania, and passed away on January 20, 1984. He was a competitive swimmer and also an actor, starring in the popular film Tarzan. Weissmuller was one of the best competitive swimmers and the world's fastest swimmers in the 20th century. He won a total of 5 Olympic gold medals for swimming and 1 bronze medal for water polo. He was the first person in history to swim a 100-meter freestyle in under a minute and was the first to swim 440 yards under 5 minutes. In his career, Weissmuller won a total of 52 U.S. national championships and set more than 50 world records for swimming. When Weissmuller retired in the 1930s, he became the actor of Edgar Rice's movie, The Tarzan, and acted in 12 motion movies.